The date is late July 2026. Somewhere inside a quiet stone house on the edge of London, a woman known for saying what no one else in royal circles dares to say leans toward a camera, folds her hands, and lowers her voice. And then she says the sentence that within hours will be pinging across every royal forum, every gossip column, every group chat that has ever whispered the name Meghan Markle. She says Prince Harry has grown close to another woman. She says Meghan found the messages on his phone. And then, in the same careful breath, she stops herself because, in her own words, for legal reasons, she cannot go further. What if I told you that a single sentence, delivered by a royal author who has been circling this couple for years, has just detonated the most fragile marriage in the modern monarchy? What if I told you there is no name, no photograph, no confirmed identity, and yet almost nobody in Britain is dismissing it? By the end of this video, you'll know exactly why this whisper is landing so hard, exactly what year of cracks made the world ready to believe it, and exactly what Lady Colin Campbell said, and just as importantly, what she carefully did not say. Before we go any further, hit subscribe, because this story is unfolding in real time, and you do not want to miss what comes next. Because here's the thing. Rumors about Harry and Meghan are not new. They arrive almost weekly. Most of them die by the weekend. But this one is different. This one has a source with a track record. This one comes wrapped in a very deliberate legal disclaimer. And this one drops into the middle of a year so strange, so quietly catastrophic for the Sussex brand that the phrase "he found someone else" no longer feels like a punchline. It feels like a possibility. Stay with this. Because to understand why one sentence from Lady C has shaken the internet the way it has, you first have to understand the 12 months that came before it. Rewind to the spring of 2025. On paper, the Sussexes still exist as a unit. The Netflix deal is still being talked about. The Arkewell Foundation is still issuing statements. Meghan's lifestyle brand, once teased as the great American reinvention, is preparing its next quiet launch. Harry is hairy-bearded, restless, flying between Montecito and courtrooms in London, fighting the tabloids he has fought since he was a teenager. But look closer, and the cracks are already there. Their social accounts have been separating. Their public appearances have been drifting apart. And the couple who once could not stop holding hands are now, more and more often, photographed on entirely different continents. Now fast forward. Meghan begins appearing solo. Geneva, at a summit. Chicago at a corporate event. Smiling, waving, doing the walk. But no Harry. Not next to her. Not behind her. Not in the frame at all. And Harry, meanwhile, keeps coming home. To London. To Britain. Alone. 4 court dates. For a security appeal. For a private visit to see his father when the king's health became a national conversation. Each trip generates the same question in every headline. Where is Meghan? And each time the silence from Montecito is a little louder than the last. Think about that for a moment. A couple who built their entire public identity around unity, around the idea that they left the palace together, that they suffered together, that they would rebuild together, is now consistently, visibly, unmistakably operating apart. And then came Paris. In the autumn of 2025, during Fashion Week, Meghan posts a short video clip from the back of a moving car. The car is gliding through Paris at night. The lights blur past the window. The mood is glossy, cinematic, carefully composed. And within minutes, the internet does the maths. Paris, a car at night. A Princess Diana connection that hardly needs spelling out. Critics call it tone-deaf. Royal commentators call it worse than tone-deaf. And in Montecito, according to sources close to the couple, Harry is said to be, in the polite phrasing of one insider, not pleased. In the less polite phrasing, furious. Because whatever Meghan intended, whatever the caption said, that clip drove a wedge into the one part of Harry's life he has spent nearly 3 decades trying to protect. His mother's memory. And here's where it gets even more chilling. Because that same year, Harry is in a witness box in London under oath, describing what press intrusion did to his life. He testifies, in 2023, and again in 2026 that the tabloids helped wreck his long, formative relationship with Chelsea Davy. He describes the paranoia, the photographers in the bushes, the phones that might have been hacked, the girl he loved who eventually looked at him and said, "This is not a life I can live." In his own memoir, he admits something that goes even deeper. He writes that if he had ever been given the choice, freely and without pressure, he would have walked away from royal life entirely. Not reformed it. Not modernized it. Walked away from it. Ask yourself something. What kind of man says that? What kind of man tells a court, and a best-selling book, and by extension the world, that the great love of his early 20s was destroyed by the very machinery he now insists on fighting from 10,000 miles away? A man like that does not marry lightly. A man like that clings to the woman he believes finally understood him. But a man like that also, if he ever begins to feel that the woman he clung to is now the one exposing him again to cameras, to controversy, to a Paris tunnel that should have stayed sacred, a man like that begins to look elsewhere. Quietly. Privately. On a phone. Which brings us back to Lady Colin Campbell. Because Lady C, love her or loathe her, is not some anonymous blogger. She is a royal biographer, a titled aristocrat by marriage, a woman who has cultivated sources inside and around royal households for the better part of 40 years. She has been wrong before. She has also been early, more than once, on stories that the mainstream press eventually caught up with. And when she sat down in front of that camera and delivered the sentence that has now traveled around the world, she did it with a very specific structure. She said Harry had grown close to another woman his own age. She said Meghan had found messages on his phone. And then she said, and this is the part that matters, that she could not, for legal reasons, call it an affair. Read that carefully, because that is not a woman guessing. That is a woman who has been advised. There is no name attached. There is no photograph. There is no confirmed identity. Nobody has produced a text message, a screenshot, a leaked email. It sits, exactly as the careful ones will tell you, in rumor territory. And yet the reason it lands, the reason it will not go away, the reason even the more cautious royal commentators are now discussing it on serious daytime programs, is that it slots so neatly into the 12 months of documented behavior that came before it. Separate accounts, separate cities, separate brands, a Paris video, a courtroom confession, a man flying home again and again without his wife. If you've made it this far, hit like, because stories like this one, the ones that live in the gap between what is proven and what is patterned, are the ones the palace watchers pay the closest attention to. And drop a comment. Tell me honestly, do you think Lady C is chasing a headline, or do you think she knows something the rest of us don't? Because here is what royal watchers are quietly saying now, in the private WhatsApp groups and the pubs off Kensington High Street where former palace staff still gather. They are saying that the Sussex marriage has been under strain since at least the Netflix reshuffle. They are saying that the atmosphere in Montecito, according to those who visit, has changed. They are saying that Harry has been drinking less, exercising more, and returning to a small circle of very old friends from before Meghan. Friends from the Eton years. Friends who, in the words of one, remember who he was when he was still happy. And one name, according to Lady C, has emerged inside that circle. A woman around his age. Not a stranger. Not a fling. Someone he trusts. That is the version Lady C has hinted at. That is the version she has been careful not to fully commit to. And that is the version Meghan Markle, according to that same source, allegedly discovered when she picked up his phone. Now picture that scene. Because whether it happened exactly this way or not, this is the image that has now lodged itself in the public imagination. A kitchen in California. Late evening. The children asleep. A phone lighting up on the counter. A wife who has spent the last 5 years defending a marriage against a global press pack, reaching, out of habit, out of instinct, out of that quiet dread every partner knows, for the screen. And reading something she was never meant to read. We do not know what she read. We do not know if she read anything at all. But we know this. Within days of Lady C's video going live, Meghan Markle is described by American commentators as, in the words of one, incandescent. Megyn Kelly, never a friend of the Duchess, tears into her on air in terms so scathing that even Meghan's defenders wince. Other commentators, more measured, note only that the Sussex team has gone unusually ominously quiet. No denial, no lawyer's letter, no carefully worded statement from a spokesperson, just silence. And in this family, silence is never neutral. Silence is a decision. Silence is a strategy. Silence is what you do when the truth is either too messy to deny or too dangerous to confirm. Think about that for a moment, because the Sussex machine, whatever else you say about it, is not a machine that ignores stories. It has fought the Mail on Sunday in court. It has issued statements over a birthday card. It has in the past mobilized entire PR operations over a single misquoted line. And yet on the biggest, most personally devastating rumor of the year, the machine has said nothing. That is the part royal watchers cannot stop circling. That is the part that makes the whisper feel heavier than a whisper. Now zoom out for a moment. Because a story like this one is never really about the third person. It is never really about the phantom woman with no name and no face. It is about the couple at the center of it. And when you look at Harry and Meghan through the lens of everything the last 18 months have shown us, the solo trips, the split brands, the Paris clip, the courtroom testimony, the memoir line about walking away from royal life if he could, a picture emerges that has nothing to do with a mistress and everything to do with a marriage that may simply have run out of shared oxygen. Harry married Meghan believing she was the escape hatch from an institution he could not survive. Meghan married Harry believing she was joining a family that would finally, at last, see her as she wished to be seen. Neither of those beliefs, in hindsight, survived contact with reality. The institution did not fall. The family did not embrace her. And the escape hatch became a small house on the far side of a foreign country, with a shrinking Netflix deal, a stalled lifestyle brand, and a husband who keeps getting on planes going the wrong way. If you were Harry, and you had watched the woman you loved post a car clip from Paris, of all cities would you not, in some small, private, defensive corner of yourself, begin to wonder whether the escape had cost more than it gave? That is the question Lady C has now dropped, uninvited, onto the world's kitchen table. And that is why nobody, not even the skeptics, can quite bring themselves to laugh it off. Because here is the killer detail. When Lady C was pressed in the days that followed her video on whether she stood by what she had said, she did not walk anything back. She did not soften. She did not clarify. She simply repeated, in the same careful cadence, that there were things she could not say for legal reasons. And when a woman who has spent 40 years talking about the royal family suddenly starts talking about legal reasons, the entire industry sits up. She said quietly, in one follow-up appearance, "I know what I know." One sentence. On its own. No embellishment. And that, more than anything else, is the sentence that has kept this story alive. So what does it mean? What does it mean for the monarchy that watched Harry leave and has spent 5 years quietly enduring the fallout? What does it mean for a king in the twilight of his reign, whose younger son may now be facing the collapse of the very marriage he chose the Californian exile for? What does it mean for William, who is said, by those monitoring the family's internal dynamics, to have hardened into a kind of glacial patience, where his brother is concerned, a patience that says nothing, offers nothing, and waits? The ripple effects, if the rumor hardens into something more, would be enormous. A Sussex separation would not be a private matter. It would be a global media event. It would reopen every wound the last 5 years supposedly cauterized. It would drag the children Archie Lilibet into the exact spotlight both parents swore they would be protected from. It would force the palace, however reluctantly, to prepare statements, coordinate positions, decide, finally, whether Harry comes home or stays gone. And it would hand the tabloids Harry has spent his adult life fighting the single biggest story of the decade, delivered, if Lady C is right, not by them at all, but by a phone left face up on a kitchen counter. That is the weight sitting on top of one unverified whisper. That is why a rumor with no name and no photograph is being taken seriously by people who do not usually take rumors seriously at all. And that is why, when you strip away the noise and the commentary and the Meghan Kelly monologues and the Paris clip and the courtroom transcripts, you are left with a single, unavoidable image. A boy who once stood behind his mother's coffin at the age of 12, promising himself he would build a life the press could not touch. A man who married the woman he believed could give him that life. And a marriage that may now, quietly, at the edges, be coming apart in exactly the way he swore his never would. Whether Lady Colin Campbell is right, whether she is wrong, whether the other woman exists, whether the messages were ever really read, none of that changes the deeper truth this whisper has exposed. The truth is that a lot of people watching the Sussexes over the last 12 months were already ready to believe it. And a marriage the world is ready to believe is ending as a marriage already, in some sense, on borrowed time. But here is the part nobody expected. Because inside this same story, buried under the noise about phones and Paris and Meghan Kelly, there is another figure who has not spoken publicly at all, a figure whose silence, in the weeks since Lady C's video, has become almost as loud as the rumor itself. And what that person does next may reshape this entire narrative in ways nobody in Montecito or in Buckingham Palace is prepared for. That is the chapter we will open in the next video. If you've made it this far, hit like. Because stories like this do not stay buried for long, and the ones who follow them closely see the pattern before the palace does. Subscribe, so you don't miss what comes next. Because the next 12 months of this family are going to be more revealing than the last 5 combined. And ask yourself, quietly, as this video ends, when the machinery of a marriage finally begins to fall silent, is it because there is nothing left to say? Or because someone, somewhere, has already said too much? The phone is still on the counter. The screen has gone dark. And somewhere, in a house that was supposed to be a sanctuary, a woman is deciding what she wants the world to know next.